Hey, it's Bob. I want to thank you for registering for this webcast. It is going to be a life changing experience for you. And you're almost done. I just sent you two emails to the address that you signed up with. One of them is going to have your login credentials. You want to save that. These are Hi, this is Bob Tom, and I want to welcome you to the Brains Objection Mastery Blueprint. This is all about communicating, presenting, influence, and persuading in a way that's in perfect harmony with the way that the brain actually works. In this program, in the webcast today, I'm going to teach you how several advisors have used this technology to make quantum leaps in their business by mastering just a few essential keys and show you some pretty other cool stuff as well. And for those of you who don't know me, I will give you a promise, mercifully brief introduction. I've been in the business since 1985. I started with Shearson Lehman Brothers. I was lucky enough to be the Rookie of the Year. I have been a six-time Chairman Council producer. I was Sales Manager of the Year for my firm in the year 2000, 2003. I left the industry to become a full-time peak performance coach and opened the Advisor Business Institute. I created the 90 Day Dazzle, which is an award winning new client marketing system designed to get your clients to become raving advocates of your practice in 90 days or less. I've got 4 books on the business of advice. I host an audio program that you can subscribe to called On the Shoulders of Giants, which is interviews with large producers. And I've created the whole mind selling system, which is part of what this is. And in this, I really want to focus on some ways that you can have a collaborative conversation with your clients instead of a sales interview. How to discover your client's compelling emotional outcome so that you can determine what they really want from the interaction that they are having with you. They're giving you some of their scarcest and only non renewable resource, their time, when they show up. Clearly, they have something that they want to accomplish. This is a scientific way to get to exactly what it is that they really want and why. I also want to talk about how to avoid sounding salesy so you can actually advise and stay out of that salesman part of the brain, and a new way to answer objections that is not at all combative. And I want to talk about some of the reasons that I'm doing this now. One reason was the big advisor Lollapalooza that I was at with a couple of my clients, and the one guy who doubled his production over the previous year. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. But there's more reasons. Sooner or later, the music is going to stop. And how you do in the next correction is going to be determined in large part by the quality of your relationships. Also, there was a recent study by the VIP Forum that said when affluent clients interviewed a financial advisor but did not invest with them, in other words, they went to meet with somebody but chose not to do business, in the survey, they had lots of reasons listed why people might not have done business with them, and they could check as many as they wanted to. 68.7% of the clients didn't buy because they didn't feel understood. One of the most powerful parts of this technology is it takes that risk away from your practice. Additionally, most of the stuff that we're taught in sales training today is actually accessing the exact wrong part of your client's mind. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And if you're dealing with your clients, you probably notice the same issues coming up over and over again. So one question may be, how do I insulate myself against that? Finally, the role of the advisor, your role in dealing with your clients, is continuing to shift in the information age. The modern client wants insight, not just information, not just knowledge. And I'm going to show you some ways you can deliver that to them. So who can take advantage of that? Certainly if you're an advisor and you want to grow your business, this is for you. I will tell you that as a sales leader and a sales manager, as I began to move up the corporate ladder, this was invaluable to me to teach to my advisors. And if you're a regional manager at an asset firm and you'd like to be a quote unquote value added wholesaler that actually adds value, that's where this was created. I was a wholesaler for 2 years for a predecessor to Columbia Funds. And at the time that I was wholesaling for them, our oldest mutual fund was 3 years old and it was flat for the time period that it had been a fund. And if you're a wholesaler, you know, a frequent question that you get asked is, do you have any hypotheticals that I can show my clients? My answer, unfortunately, yeah, I do, but the fund is flat for the life of the fund. $10,000 has grown to literally $10,005. So in order to add any impact at all, I had to be completely value added. And I'll tell you briefly how this came about. First of all, I studied psychology in college. I've got a psych minor, a finance major. Second thing, if you've seen the videos that I sent to you, you know I had an elderly client who had a maturing CD, and I'd always ask them, how long are you comfortable tying the money up? And the answer was always, I don't want to tie my money up. One day, through kind of an embarrassing disclosure that I showed you on that video, I was feeling kind of lazy. I was wanting to go to happy hour with a bunch of the other advisors, and I asked them, how soon are you planning on spending the principal? And not only did the guy say never, he said never so angrily that I realized that I was actually onto something. That was my actual first insight. In 2002, our firm merged, and I was chosen to mentor some of the new advisors of the funds that were coming over there, and I really enjoyed that. I actually found teaching and training advisors, for me personally, to be a lot more rewarding than working with clients on their investments, even though I'd been quite successful doing that. I had the 2 years of wholesaling that I told you about, and then 9 years in management, beginning with a year of basically just working with low performers to help them bring their production up. So I was constantly searching on ways of cracking the code. And I would read anything I could find about how successful people became successful. And on that journey, I discovered neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP. I discovered that at a networking meeting where I met a guy who said he was a therapist of last resort. And everybody said, what in the world is that? Well, he was a hypnotherapist. And a hypnotherapist is very often the last person that people come and see because it's kind of shrouded in mystery. I learned about Milton Erickson, MD, who's really the father of medical hypnosis in the US, and particularly a very unique brand of hypnosis called conversational hypnosis, where you're not looking at a watch and dropping people into trance, and you're not doing a long guided visualization to get them into a trancey type feeling. You had to do it covertly because for many years it was illegal in the US, and he's the one that's responsible for making it legal in 1954. And this is something that I became absolutely fascinated in. In fact, I became a certified master hypnotherapist. I'm now actually an instructor of conversational hypnotherapy, board certified by the American Board of Hypnotherapy and the International Association of Professional Conversational Hypnotherapists. And in studying that, I learned about an important technique called creating a floodgate experience. And you've seen a floodgate experience, I'm sure. That's when your client is so interested in doing business with you for whatever reason, the rapport and the trust is right exactly where you want it to be. And they just basically open up and tell you their complete story. And you've probably had the experience of recognizing that those sales are, opening those accounts are some of the easiest ones that you can open. Why? Because the trust is there, and you understand completely what it is that they're looking to accomplish, why they want to accomplish it, how to get there. The problem is with many people, that happens accidentally and haphazardly. It happens sometimes. What we want to do through this program is to teach you how to deliver that experience on purpose and by design, literally every time that you're doing business with them. The goal is to get to their compelling emotional outcome. That thing that they care about so much that they would, metaphorically at least, walk across broken glass in their bare feet in order to be able to get it. That's at the heart of this system. And it's also at the heart of what I call a motivational interview. It's a questioning structure, not coming off a printed form for drawing up a financial plan. Those are fine. I don't have any problem with those at all, but they're not conversational. And it's too much of a structured type business. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor and you start, they start asking you, have you ever had any cancer? Have you ever had any heart troubles? Have you ever had this or that or any surgeries in the last? What are you taking on pills? Think about the mindset that you get in. It's kind of like, for me anyway, and for a lot of people that I've asked about it, it's a necessary evil that we have to do that we just want to get out of our way. Not a very effective strategy for building trust and developing rapport with a new prospect or with a client. Not the best strategy for deepening a relationship. The question becomes, well, how do we elicit it? And being able to elicit that goes a long way to bulletproofing ourselves from objections, because we're on the same side of the table now. And your clients, like in Jerry Maguire, they're helping you to help them. It's kind of like once you understand what their CEO, their compelling emotional outcome is, they start cheering you. They start saying, that's exactly what I want. Can you help me get it? And it does bulletproof you from objections, or if they do come up, it makes the objections at least a lot easier to handle. So the question is, what is an objection? To a lot of people in traditional sales, it's when the selling begins, which I think it's the exact opposite of that. If you do things correctly, you've already been doing a lot of persuading and influencing before that first objection comes up. In traditional selling, it's something to be answered. And I think it's not really something to be answered, but although obviously when you get them, you do have to answer them. At its heart, it's a clue to something that you missed along the way. And done correctly under this system, you'll find it's really going to be an inquiry for more information. So to get to a CEO, compelling emotional outcome, we want to get the client beyond words. Compelling emotional outcomes exist in your unconscious. They're emotions. We then label them, and our critical mind then rationalizes or justifies them. And we've got two parts of our brain that you need to be aware of. And this is your first nugget of this call. The two parts of our brain that we want to be aware of is the BAS, which is the behavioral activation system, and the BIS, which is the behavioral inhibition system. Easy way to think about it is the BAS is the gas pedal, the BIS is the brake. And scientists have known now for 25 or 30 years, mid-70s, so I guess that's actually closer to 40 years, they've known about these two parts of our system. And they've known that when people decide to move forward with any action, it is typically 100% at the moment that you buy an emotional experience. And by buy, whether that's deciding to work out or whatever, that is an emotional decision. It's then measured against and filtered by the behavioral inhibition system, which is our critical mind. It's that logical part of our brain. And one of the ways during my couple of years of wholesaling that I used to answer that quote unquote objection, do you have a hypothetical illustration? I would say, yeah, I do, but you're not going to want to use it. And furthermore, you don't want to use it. If you'll learn the system that I'm going to teach you, you'll never need a hypothetical illustration again. Because a lot of the tools that we use in the business of advice are tools that we're using to attempt to logically prove to our clients that doing business with us is the right thing to do. And when you're attempting to logically prove to the client that doing business with you is the smart thing to do, you're accessing the wrong part of their brain. You've entered the no zone. Now, I know sometimes there can be a little piece of information that can be useful, but it's useful for one of two reasons. It's either useful because whatever you're describing or demonstrating to them is causing an emotion to happen on the inside, or they had already pretty much made the decision to buy. They've made that emotional decision. They just needed a little bit of evidence for their critical mind to make sure that it's okay. Now, a lot of times I get people who say, hey, I do business with a lot of engineers, and they're not emotional people at all, which isn't really true. They're still emotional, but their emotion is more certainty. That's what they're looking for. So how do you get to the CEO? And the easiest way to get there is to make it a rule that you're simply not going to proceed until you're there, and practice the skill until you get very good at it. And one of the things that I'm going to suggest to you, which this will sound overly simplistic, but I'll tell you why I do suggest it, is to begin the conversation when you sit down with a prospect or a client and simply ask, how can I help? And I know you're probably thinking, oh, you can't be serious. I'm on a webcast to hear, how can I help? But here's the thing. We've heard in traditional sales training that you don't want to talk past the close. In other words, if the client told you they're ready to invest, you don't need to keep talking. And the reason is, if they've told you that they're ready to go and you continue going, you may unsell what it is that what they're looking for. I believe the opposite of that is also true. You don't want to talk past the opening, because sometimes when clients, particularly clients that you've done business with in the past, come into you, they're maybe ready to go. So if they're ready to go, our goal is to get them talking. Now, for new prospects, this isn't going to work all that much, but it'll still work maybe 1 in 6, 1 in 7, 1 in 8 times. Your results may vary. But for those that are ready to pop, to have that floodgate experience, let them have it. For the other 80% or whatever the number is, the next step is to ask a hyper open-ended question. And a hyper open-ended question, how can I help, is an open-ended question. Hyper open-ended begins with the presumption in the question itself that there is a difference between where they are today and where they'd like to be. And it's a method of asking a question that directs their unconscious mind, which is the part of our mind that does that search, looking for the answer. It clearly points them to exactly where you want them to go. Where's the gap between where you are and where you want to be? I teach about 7 different versions of that. I'll give you one of the easiest ones to do, and I won't belabor you by going through all 7 of them. But the easiest one is, what in your life do you want your money to do for you that you haven't addressed yet or haven't addressed completely? And that's a great question to teach your referral sources, to use with new prospects, to use with existing clients. Because human beings are goal-seeking organisms. We climb one mountain, and from that peak, we now can look out on the vistas to see another mountain that we want to climb. Take care of a client's income needs. Now they want to have a little growth in their portfolio. portfolio. Take care of their portfolio needs. Maybe their thoughts turn to estate planning to make sure that their kids are going to be well off. Take care of that. Now all of a sudden they might start wanting to make charitable contribution. There is no end to how deep you can go when you learn all of these skills. And the last one is Alfred Korzybski's R factor question. He wrote about this in a book, 1933. And there's a lot of people besides just me teaching this particular question because it is powerful. It's been around for nearly 80 years or 80 plus years now, I guess. And that question is, if we were to begin working together and be back here a year from now, reviewing the success of our first year working together, what would have to have happened for you to look back and think to yourself, this has been an absolutely wonderful investment of my time, my energy, and my assets. And I literally could spend the next hour talking about the power of that particular question. But let me just help you realize some of the true power of that question. What are we in essence doing? We are, again, aiming the client's unconscious mind toward now their ultimate success. We're future pacing the experience of them working for us. In other words, we want their success recipe, and we want to make sure that we get baked right in as one of the ingredients. We push them out into the future and have them look back over the last year, which hasn't happened yet, but the power of that little one nuance gets your prospect, or at least suggests to your prospect, that when you think of this, I'd like you to store it in your brain as a memory. And we store memories in different parts of our brain than we store ideas. And this is a cool psychological tool that master hypnotists have been using for years. It's one of the reasons that they can get results when so many other people cannot, and they can get it more quickly. Powerful, powerful stuff. Then we're asking them to unpack our recipe. Well, what's that doing? Literally creating a roadmap to discover what is the criteria under which they're going to be making their decision whether or not to move forward. And for Chuck Hightower, in that first video, the guy that I told you about, this was one of several things that he mastered that he said made the ultimate difference in being able to go from 800,000 to 1.55 million or 1.45 million, forget exactly what the number is, but to nearly double his production from a very high level, a very successful level, but one he was not satisfied with and had been stuck at for about 3 years. Now, granted, if you're stuck, 800,000 is not a bad place to be stuck, but he wanted more. And I'll unpack several more steps as we continue. The key is to mentally think about going 7 levels deep with your clients and prospects. Because to me, a meeting with a prospect is no different from a meeting with a client, other than the fact that the client knows and trusts and ideally, hopefully, likes us. My goal is still going to be to deepen the relationship, deepen the wallet share. So let's take a look at those 7 levels. Level number 1 is whatever they come in. I want higher return with a decent degree of safety. Step number 2 is to understand that definition. And you've probably heard the question X. Safety means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. There are many people who are teaching that technology as well. This is not something that I invented. Safety means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. What does it mean to you? Next step is to validate that and deepen. So they're going to give you whatever answer they give you, and you can simply acknowledge that and then ask, what's important about that? And I like what more than why, because why is asking for a rational explanation. And for the time being, we want to stay out of that part of their brain. So they give you whatever answer that they give you, and then you can ask, How will you know when you have that? This is unpacking their reality strategy. In other words, what criteria do I need to meet so that you will feel like we're on the right path? These are steps that the vast majority of advisors do not follow. And by missing that, they are missing out on pure persuasive gold. But we don't want to stop there. The next question is, when you have that, how will things be different or better? And they're going to give us whatever answer that they give us to that. And then we're going to ask, why is that important? And finally, ultimately, as you're in that experience, keep them in the present moment. We're not going to rationalize it. We want to know what they're feeling right now because we've been doing all of this to trigger their emotions. We want them to stay in that emotional bath and just basically ask them, as you are here in this experience, what feelings are you having? Or what are you experiencing? And when you get there, you're now positioning yourself as a collaborator. And at this point, the smile can be the greatest trial close ever. When you realize, okay, I've got the map of where it is that I want to go, that smile will serve as a pattern interrupt. They'll say, why are you smiling? And it can be, well, because that's exactly what it is that I do. Then you just need to lay out the plan. And that's the point at which objections become mere inquiries. And you have totally changed the game. And if you have objections that come up over and over again, like I did with the hypothetical illustration and I did with the clients back in the 80s who were always waiting for the interest rates to come up, you can come up with ways of stories to insulate yourself against them coming up. And another example that I'll give you real quick, I've shared this before, you may have read about it, the story of the brick. And the story of the brick, I used to have a red brick on my desk and clients would ask, what's the deal with the brick? And I say, well, I'll tell you about that later, but it's something that I only share with my clients, piquing their curiosity, capturing, leading their imagination. And assuming we went through the process and did open the account, I would say, okay, let me tell you the story of the brick. My goal is to work with you for a long and very profitable time together. But I know from experience, working in the markets, because they go up and down, there's going to be a time that you're going to get nervous. And there may be a time that, because the markets are swinging so violently, that you may even get angry. You may even want to come down to my office, and I had an office on the first floor, and throw this brick through my window. And if you want to do that, I want to let you know I will allow you to borrow the brick under one condition. Before you pull back and heave ho, you take out a rubber band and your checkbook. You write the biggest check that you can afford and throw that brick through my window with the check attached. Because at the point that the markets have got so scary that you are going to emotionally react in that particular way, it may potentially be one of the best buying opportunities that we'll ever see in your lifetime. And I cannot tell you how many times I had clients that either were saying, hey, I was thinking about that brick. Don't worry, I'm not going to come down and throw it at you, but I was wondering, is this the time that we need to be investing? Or I had other clients who didn't remember the story, did get kind of angry and upset. And I would say to them, sounds like you're getting ready to borrow my brick. That was a complete pattern interrupt. It was a suggestion that I had implanted in their mind, and now I'm just simply triggering it again. I would suggest you steal that story and use it with every client you open an account with. I can't tell you how many clients that some of them just realized that it was the time possibly to be buying some more. Others who had been upset, that was a very rapid reframe to bring them back to the idea that this is not the appropriate action right now. And in fact, investing may be what I want to do right now. When objections do occur, what we want to do is make sure that we're understanding the question behind the question, because at this point, it is a question. We want to make sure that we're understanding the second half of the objection. We want to understand what's called in psychology their complex equivalent, which is either X means Y, storm clouds mean that it's about to rain, or X will cause Y. If I put my money at risk, I'll lose it. Find out what is their true objection. Most advisors go after objections like they're playing whack-a-mole. Somebody says something and boom, they've got an answer and they shoot it back real quick. And they don't understand what the true objection is. Now, it may be that there's a reason. You may have an account that has an account minimum. Maybe you only will deal with people who have 500,000 or more, or a million or more, whatever your minimum is. And they say, hey, I've only got 100 and a quarter. Well, that's not an objection. That's a reason that they can't do business with you. So you do want to understand if the question that they're bringing up may disqualify them. So let's look at an example. One that people hear a lot, particularly if you, like Chuck, are going to be interested in raising your fees. That's too expensive would be an objection. And a lot of people have got an answer to that's too expensive objection. But we want to understand, why is it too expensive? And an easy way to do that is simply asking because, instead of trying to answer it. And think about just some of the reasons. It's not in the budget. The board would never approve it if you're working with a corporate client. I'm doing that for now and I'm getting it for free. I've got an advisor at such and such a firm and they're cheaper. Or Susie Orman tells me that I shouldn't pay that fee. There could be lots of different reasons, and that's true of every objection. Before we go into the process of answering these objections, we want to make sure that we're clearly understanding what is the question that they're asking. Now, the first step is to go back and reaffirm their CEO, because now we're down the rabbit hole a little bit, and really all through the process, the way that I teach you the whole mind selling system, we're constantly aiming everything at their CEO. But one of the things that we can do, and I'll give you a couple of different ways that we might handle that particular objection. One is to deal with the consequence. Are you going to deny yourself X, your compelling emotional outcome, because of this small fee? Are you going to deny yourself my expertise and my ability to help guide you for 0.75% of the money that you have under management? Another common way of doing that, if it is actually the price, is to chunk down. It's only X number of dollars a day, and you get X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C, and really stack all the benefits on there. Another way is to challenge their intent. Is really saving X number of dollars, or is it more about getting your compelling emotional outcome? Or another example is to say X is not really too expensive. What's expensive is not being able to achieve that dream the way I saw your eyes lit up when you described that earlier. So those are 4 examples. I actually teach 14 in the full BOM masterclass. Those are 4 of them that you can begin to deploy immediately and begin to get good results. Now the question is, how do you master this? You're sitting there at your computer, you're still on the line, so obviously you can see that there are good opportunities to employ this. You've probably realized, at least on some level, that just the stuff that we've talked about so far can be a massive game changer for you. It can change the way that you deal with your clients, your prospects, your referral people. So you've realized that you do want to have this in your arsenal. So naturally, you might be wondering, well, what's the next step? And if you do realize this will completely change the way that you interact with your clients and your prospect, you might be wondering what's the quickest way to master this. And clearly from the studies that I've cited earlier, your clients want you to interact with them in this way. Well, like most things in life, the quickest way is by doing it. Practice makes permanent. Doesn't make perfect. Only perfect practice makes perfect. Now, I'm not going to get you all hyped up and try to get you all hyped up about the ways that I can help you do this in your business and in other areas of your life. You've stayed with me this long, so I know you know the huge difference that this can make. So I just do want to go over a couple of ideas that if you would like me to help you install this in your practice, a way that we can easily do it together, assuming, of course, that you would like to continue this journey. The best way to do it is through experiential immersion. What I've just shown you is the system that, as I told you, I've been developing over 20 years. It's the same system that has led my elite coaching clients to have some of the best results in the industry. In fact, my average private elite client is on track this year to do $1.75 million in production. High likelihood that we're going to hit that because we're coming up on 3/4 of the year. This is the first time that it's ever been made available in a more affordable group coaching environment. So here's how we'll do this. I've created a class called the BOM Masterclass. It's going to start next month, and it is designed to help you position yourself as an indispensable resource in the only place that it really matters, the mind of your client. So if you want to have a collaborative sales conversation instead of making sales presentations, this is for you. If you want to truly understand what it is that your clients desire to be able to easily and effortlessly get in touch with their compelling emotional outcome, this class is for you. If you want to be able to answer any objection that comes up, and more importantly, insulate yourself so you have a lot fewer objections from coming up in the first place, this class is specifically designed for you. So how will you know if this class is right for you or not? The BOM Masterclass is designed to help you master and implement this technology, to install the mindset that will make you bulletproof when it comes to virtually any objection, and teach you a simple structure to position your client and prospect to want to do business with you on the very first call. And that was one of the other things that Chuck did that allowed that quantum leap to happen. He had typically a 2-step or a 3-step sales process, and he learned to have a lot more clients open up the account, open up the relationship with them on the very first call. And he was very reluctant to do that at the beginning. But one of the things that we talked about in our coaching calls together, and that he shared with the group at the Advisor Palooza, was the difference was we can always get one sale from our client. We can get them to make the decision that they're going to hire us to be their advisor. And I understand there are times that you do have to go back and crunch some numbers and do some research. I'm certainly not saying it needs to be a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am type of experience where you're hooking them up and knocking them down, because after all, we're not closing sales, we're beginning relationships. And there's a huge difference. We are in this for the long term. So, we don't want to make it seem as though we're in a rush. We don't want to use high pressure to be able to do this. But think about this. What's the difference if on the second call, you have your first meeting and you do have to go back to your office and crunch numbers? What's the difference between if on the second call, you're making a traditional presentation, or you have your first meeting, you still need to crunch those numbers, but on the second call, your client is now meeting with his or her advisor to discuss the implementation of the plan that you have created. As Donald would say, Donald Trump, the difference is huge. So if you do decide to continue the journey, here's what it'll do for you. First of all, you'll learn the entire first meeting mastery blueprint. And that helps you to understand clearly and practice how to do it and discover the client's compelling emotional outcome. You'll learn that 7-step process that I talked about earlier, the conversational mining technique. You'll learn how to unpack objections so that you understand exactly what it is that they're really asking you. You'll master mind-bending language techniques, which is what is in that Korzybski's R-factor type question. What would have to have happened for you to look back and think to yourself? That's a mind-bending language technique. Just asking that question will very often put people into a light trance because they have to go so deep inside to be able to answer that question. And you'll learn a complete new mindset that will completely change the way that you interact with your clients, your prospects, your outside centers of influence. You'll understand deeply compelling emotional outcomes, what your clients really want, which is going to enable you to make extremely precise recommendations. You'll also understand why they want it, so you'll best know how to present it. You'll discover how they're going to be convinced when they've got it, so you'll have their entire recipe. And you'll clarify how their life will change, the benefit of which is you'll be motivating them into action. It'll be more collaborative conversations. You'll enter the advisory zone, not the salesperson zone. And that in and of itself is a huge difference. You'll learn objection mastery. I gave you the example of those 4 doorways into the mind of the client. In the class, we teach you 14 different ways to get into the mind of the client. You'll be armed with so many more ways to get them to say yes than they can resist. They won't be able to say no. But the biggest benefit is you'll be able to do it all in a natural and easy and conversational manner. So they're not going to be like Captain Kirk. They're not going to be raising their shields when the Klingons show up on the horizon. You are literally getting a slice of the exact same system that I previously have only taught to my elite private client group, where I work with clients one-on-one, which actually I do have 2 openings for that currently. The fee for that is $12,000 a year, billed monthly at $1,000. If you want to dig even more deeply, you can send me an email on this. I'm going to show you in just a second a more affordable way to learn this same technology. So here's how it works. I've created a 6-week full immersion experience for you where we literally break down the system and walk through it, how to install it in your business step by step. You'll learn by doing small little bits so that you can implement as you're learning in the greatest laboratory of all, real life with real clients. You will have the opportunity to practice on the calls and get coaching on the calls. But the best, quickest way is to learn by doing, By the way, you'll learn more from your mistakes than you learn from your successes. Every week we have a content call and a coaching call that will cover every phase of the process. So here's what I want you to do next. Naturally, if you implement everything that I've just shared with you, you will see amazing results. I can't guarantee that you'll double your production as so many others have, but you can sense that learning these skills would lead to a pretty good increase. That's why you want to be in the Brains Objection Mastery Blueprint Masterclass right now. And I've made it very affordable. It's just 3 payments of $331.67, or you can save $100 with a single payment of $895. Big discount from the $12,000 that the one-on-one clients are paying. But it gets better. For the first 10 people that sign up, I'm going to get you not only into the class, but also give you a 30-minute, that should say minute there, one-on-one consultation with me, and you'll pay only 3 payments of $297 or a single payment of $795. So you can save another $100. Here's why you should do it now. This is the first time that I've taught this material in this format. So I'm going to have a very vested interest to creating an absolutely amazing experience. Sometimes when I do this, I don't teach the class anymore. I'll record it and put it up in the members site where members can go and look at it. Sometimes if it's not perfect yet, I will teach the class again. And if I do, you'll be invited to go back through the class. And I'm not promising that I will, but if I do end up teaching the class a second time and you'd like to repeat to go through the experience again, you will have the ability to do that for free. You'll never get a more comprehensive experience than learning this material than you are in this class. Normally, group coaching programs only get group coaching, not this one. I am going to give you the one-on-one coaching as well, because of the fact that I want to make sure that I'm teaching this as clearly as I possibly can. So if you want to be positioned as an indispensable resource in the mind of your client, if you want to have collaborative conversations instead of presentations, you should go to advisorbusinessinstitute.com/bomb registration, Brains Objection Mastery Blueprint. If you want to clearly understand what your clients want, if you want to be able to answer any objection, this is specifically for you. But it gets even better. I don't want to sound like a Ginsu knife salesman, but I do want to do everything within my power to make this an amazing value for you. So I'm including some additional bonuses, and I'll tell you about the bonuses and then I'll go through each of them individually. First is the roundtable audios. That was a group of people who created their own lead exchange program that they led. They didn't participate in it, they actually ran it. The second is called SURF. You can tell I like acronyms. That's the Strategic Unconscious Rapport Formula. The third is Mastering the Client Experience, the Year of Dazzling Service. I told you earlier I created the 90-Day Dazzle. One of my coaching clients said 90 days is not long enough. I want the whole year. He and I worked together to create that. The third is the Quantum Leap. This is an interview with a producer who went in a single year from $3.8 million to $6.6 million. So let me break each of those down for you a little bit. The roundtable audios, you'll see, as I said, how an advisor built her own lead exchange program. I think it's about a 90-minute interview, maybe a little bit longer than that, where they lay out the step-by-step process, how they invited people in, how they kept out, what was the criteria you had to meet in order to be able to stay, how she was able to get other people to pay for the events. They'd meet at a restaurant and somebody was always picking up the tab. It was not coming out of her pocket. And the best news is it delivered over $110 million in closed referrals. Now that's in the whole group. Her cut, she was the financial advisor, was $27 million in closed new fee-based business. The second bonus is that surf program that I told you about. This is all about unconscious ways, under the radar ways of developing rapport. It's been scientifically verified by Northwestern and Stanford Business Schools. In their studies, it increased results by 562%. That's not a typo. Now, that doesn't guarantee that'll be your results. I need to put that disclaimer in there. But in the results of the study that they used using this material, that was the increase that they got. It's going to give you an A through Z blueprint of how to use these skills in your practice. The third is that year of dazzling service that I told you about, choreographing the complete client experience. And the benefit of this to you is it allows you to deconstruct and reconstruct your process so you can see if there is another effectiveness layer you can add on top of what it is that you're doing right now. My client who I worked with on this, Jeff Furman, is a master of small hinges that swing big doors. And the final one is the quintessentials of the quantum leap, the exact process of how that one advisor jumped from 3.8 to $6.6 million. Kurt is a master of creating leverage in his practice and building a team to get other people to do the things that he doesn't want to do. And he doesn't get paid well enough to do them. He jobbed that out so he can make sure his time was focused on the things that are most meaningful. So to recap, if you go to advisorbusinessinstitute.com/bomb-registration, you get not only the easy for me to say, fast acting discount, you get the bomb class, you get the roundtable, the strategic unconscious rapport formula, the year of dazzling service, and the quintessentials of the quantum leap. If you want better, easier, more natural conversations with your clients, you want, and according to the studies, you need a method of understanding what it is that they clearly want. And you know this system will pay for itself many times over. So go to, there's a link there, advisorbusinessinstitute.com/bomb registration. And you can pick your payment program. When the 10 people have registered, the price will go up. So if you go there and it still is showing you the $297 instead of the $331 or the $795 instead of the $895, then you know you are still one of the 10. And you'll also get that 30-minute consultation with me one-on-one. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick sip of tea. If you have any questions or if you've already answered questions, I will try to answer those as best as I can. And I'm happy to stay on here as long as you guys want to stay. I'll make sure that all of the questions do get answered. But I wanted to make sure that I didn't keep you on the call for too terribly long. I don't think I advertised that it was going to be a 1-hour call, but I do like to be as concise as humanly possible. But you can tell this is a subject that I'm quite passionate about. So with that, if you've got a question, just type it in the bar there, and I will do my very best to answer it. Hi, this is Bob Common. I want to welcome you to the Brains Objection Mastery Blueprint. So you should have a box off to the side. You can just type a question in if you've got a question. And when we do the live class, by the way, the question part of the period, we do bring people online and interact. It's actually, we create almost a version of a television show. So it's very informative. There is a big advantage to these master classes in that the mistakes that other people are making. I said earlier in the call that we learn a lot more from our mistakes than we learn from our successes, because we have the opportunity to analyze, okay, what did I do well? What did I do wrong? What could I do next time? And then as we go out and fix those things, there's a gigantic advantage to us in that phase of the process. And so one advantage of these group coaching type programs is the fact that you've got the ability to have the other students in the class and learn from their mistakes as well, and learn from the things that they're coaching. Very often I have people who say, wow, it was weird, you know, Kevin was in the class and brought up that particular problem, which when I heard it, I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. But then 2 days later, I'm out on a call and the exact same thing happened to me. And because I was on that coaching call and I heard how you responded to his inquiry, I already had a roadmap of what to do. So there is an advantage of working in large numbers. So if you have any questions, you can just enter them in the box to the side and I will answer them as quickly as possible. Okay, David's asking a question. Is it possible to do this particular product on a corporate level? And the answer to that is absolutely. We do branded versions of this. That's actually a completely different program. This particular one, it's not completely different. The program is very similar, but it's different in the way that it's structured, because we typically get sales leaders and trainers involved to help with the process. And if you sign up as a corporation, the pricing structure is completely different. If that's something that you have an interest in, email me and I'll be able to correspond with you and we can talk about your particular situation. But the advantage of that is when I do a private label event, which is what that's called, when I do a private label event, I'm not only training advisors on how to use this technology in their practice, I'm also training sales leaders on how they can use the technology and how they can be implementation coaches. So there is an advantage to the privately branded corporate event, and that is that you actually have got not only the advisors going through the class that I'm teaching and being coached by me, but we actually add on a separate coaching call, which is the Train the Trainer coaching call. That can be sales leaders, managers, complex managers, trainers in the home office, whoever you want to be involved with it. And it's priced so that you can get as many people on the call as you want to do, whereas this one's priced more affordably for individuals, but everybody's kind of basically paying their own way. So if that's your situation, we absolutely have the ability to do that as well. Okay, so any other questions? Well, I want to thank you guys. Pretty much the people that were on this call were just the ones that got shut out of the last one. I wanted to make sure that I didn't run into that same technology. This is actually phenomenal technology, but it can be a little bit glitchy, and I'm learning to master it. It's only been available for about 4 or 5 months. So it actually made a mistake in the way that I was setting it up last time, that once everybody was on the call, we had it sit for 1,000. I didn't know that I had the ability to make it even bigger. This was a smaller call. just for the people who got shut out of the last one. So if there's no further questions, I will sign off. I'm not seeing anything there, so I want to thank you for the generosity of your time. I know, as I said, it is your scarcest and only non-renewable resource. If you'd like to email me directly, you've got my emails that have been coming into your inbox probably all day. And I hope I will see you in the masterclass, which will start the middle of next month. Thank you guys very, very much for tuning in, and I hope our paths cross again soon and often. And until then, I will just say to your success. Have a great evening. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.